And I tell people that I got so tired of saying goodbye that I just stopped saying hello. And I was one of those people that were over in the corner most of the time, and nobody even knew that I was there. And I was one of those folks that people look like, this guy will probably never amount to anything. But after we were married, Kathy and I moved to Texas to go to seminary, and then back to Georgia. And then we moved back to Texas to do some more clinical training at Baylor Medical Center out there, and then we moved back to Georgia. So we've been around. But for the last 27 years, we've been in the little town of Coolidge, which is down between Thomasville and Moultrie. And for 35 years, I've been a Baptist pastor. The Lord called me into the ministry when I was 19 years old. You know, I never really thought about politics a lot when I was growing up. In fact, I never had any idea that I'd have an opportunity to be a politician, and I hate that word, I really do, because I think most of the time when people call you a politician, they're not talking nice about it. I'd rather be called a servant. But I never thought about it much. My first voting experience, when I registered to vote as a senior, I asked my dad, Dad, tell me how to vote. I don't really know a whole lot about voting, never been to the polls, and it was back in those old days when they had those big old machines that were about this big, and you went in there and you got that lever and you pulled it from this side to that side and closed the curtain up behind you. I mean, that was enough to scare you to death. And they had all those little old flip levers, and you had to do everything manually, flipping all those levers. And Dad said, don't worry about any of those levers, son. He said, there's one lever at the top you got to worry about. He said, it's a lever that when you turn that one lever, it pulls a straight Democratic ballot. He said, you just pull that one. He said, we're Democrats, always been Democrats, always will be Democrats. So you go in there and you vote that straight Democratic ticket. So that was my first voting experience. I went in there not knowing who was on the ballot hardly, but Dad said vote Democrat, so I went in there and I closed that little, moved that handle, that curtain closed behind me, and I voted pulled that one lever, and it just turned all those levers going down that Democratic side, and I voted a straight Democratic ticket. Now, that was the first and last time I ever did that. After Kathy and I were married, Keown and I graduated from Shorter College together. And then we went on to Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary together and graduated there. And in 1983, I moved to Coolidge. And I'm actually pastoring the church right now that I pastored when I came right out of seminary. I made full circle and come right back to where I started again. But I was pastor of Coolidge Baptist Church, and in 1986, after being there 2 or 3 years, one of the deacons came up one day and he said, Mike, we want you to run for mayor. Now, Coolidge is a small town, about 400 or 500 people. And the church there is not a large church, but it is the largest church in town. I thought, well, I don't know about being the pastor of the church and being the mayor at the same time. And so I tried to talk him out of it, but he said, listen, you might not win anyway, but we want you to run. He said, in fact, I'll pay you qualifying fee. He knew I was right out of school and really didn't have a whole lot of money, had 2 kids at home, and so he knew that I was a poor preacher. He knew what they were paying me, is what he did. And so he said, I'll pay you qualifying fee. And so he paid that qualifying fee, and I signed up to run as mayor. Now, I didn't know that in a little town like that, where everybody knew everybody else, they'd already made it up among themselves that if we just talked a preacher into running for mayor, then nobody else would sign up. Nobody else would qualify. And so that's what they did. They all went around town, nobody's running for mayor, the preacher's running for mayor, and so at the end of qualifying, they just canceled the election and said, Mike, you're the mayor. Here it is. So I was the mayor of the big city of Coolidge for about 4 years. And my legacy as the mayor of Coolidge is that I brought cable TV to town. That's a big deal. 1980, late 1980s, I brought cable TV to Coolidge, Georgia, and we also got a brand new sewer system. And I'm telling you, that's quite a legacy. I still think one day they're going to call me back and name that holding pond after me or something in Coolidge. My lasting legacy. 4 years as the mayor of the city of Coolidge. Long council meetings. The council members made $25 a month, and the mayor made $50 a month. And they gave it to us all in December, about 2 weeks before Christmas. We got a Christmas bonus. And really came in good with those kids and that Baptist preacher's salary I was trying to live off of during those years. But in 1990, I was asked to run for the Thomas County School Board. They had just built a new Thomas County Central High School, and if you know, in Thomasville we have Thomasville school system, and we have a Thomas County school system. two different systems, and they don't ever want to be one. It doesn't look like. But they built a new Thomas County High School. Instead of naming it Central High School like the old one was, they decided they were just going to name it Thomas County High School. Leave out the Central. Well, you can imagine all the old alumni that went to Central High School for all those years. They got upset and they started looking around for somebody to run to get a school board member. And they came and found me and asked me would I run for school board. And so I ran for school board and against a two-term incumbent. He'd been in for 8 years, and I beat him by 8 votes. Now he ran against me later on, 4 years later, but we beat him worse that time. And I had 2 more terms where I was unopposed serving on the Thomas County School Board. And I was halfway through my 4th 4-year term with the school board when the Georgia legislature became embroiled in a redistricting controversy in 2004. By this time, I'd moved from the Coolidge Church, and I was a pastor of a Newark Baptist Church, first Newark Baptist Church in Thomasville, and I'd been there about 8 years. And my ministry has always been to go to churches, and I'm just going to say it the way I usually say it, that somebody else has torn up. I've always gone to churches after the pastor's been fired, or after there's been a split, or after something catastrophic has happened. And I went to that church at Newark when there were 40 senior adults that were left after a pastor had on a vote of 60% to 40%, he just decided to sell their church. And they, to stay in their own church, had to buy it back. Had to go to the bank and borrow the money and buy back their own church before he sold it. And then he left and took all the young folks left. So I went to that church when there were 40 senior adults there. And we spent those next 11 years helping that church get back to where it needed to be. And through those years just saw one miracle after another as God grew a tremendous